Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to join us for the iSmart IMLS Year 3 project update. I'm Denise Gomez, doctoral candidate at Florida State University and the research coordinator for this project. We know your time is valuable, so we hope to provide you with this brief update through a video instead of another online meeting. We have a short agenda today. Our goal is just to remind everyone about the project by sharing key players, providing a project overview, sharing Year 3 progress, and then sharing our next steps. Let's start by reintroducing the Principal Investigator team. Our project is led by Principal Investigator Marcia Martis, Professor and Associate Dean of Research at Florida State University, and also Director of the Information Institute. Faye Jones and Aaron Osgoven serve as co-PI. Faye is a faculty researcher at FSU's College of Communication and Information and Associate Director of the Information Institute. Aaron is Associate Professor at the FAMU FSU College of Engineering and the Director of the Resilient Infrastructure and Disaster Response Center, or RIDER Center. I'm assisting with this project along with Samuel Taki, a doctoral student and research assistant at the RIDER Center. One of the aspects of this project that reviewers really liked was the broad range of partners and advisors we've engaged. This is certainly true as the partners are from multiple disciplines and important contributors. Partners support the project with advice, yes, but also work with us directly on research, outreach, and dissemination. Partners include public libraries represented by Bay County Libraries Director Robin Shader, Gulf County Libraries Coordinator Mimi Minnick, and Calhoun County Libraries Director Wendy Eubanks. The Panhandle Library Access Network is represented by Executive Director Charles Mayberry and Assistant Director Rachel Villalobos. We are also partnering with the Public Library Association, the Florida Division of Library and Information Services, and the chief officers of state library agencies. In addition to having partners, we also have advisors that reflect the truly interdisciplinary and multifaceted nature of disaster response. Advisors will help us bridge knowledge gaps and build understanding in their areas of expertise. Advisors include Mary Davis Fournier of PLA, Jenny Stapp and Jeremy Johansson of COSLA, David Berlin of FSU Askew School of Public Administration and Policy, Ben Guthrie, the 911 coordinator of Gulf, Calhoun, and Franklin counties, Amy Johnson, the state librarian of Florida, Kevin Guthrie, the state of Florida EOC director, Scott Pickett of FSU College of Medicine Center for Translational Behavioral Science, Brooke Powell, the Bay County Chief Administrative Officer, Bailey Tu Kiefner of the College of Information and Communications at University of South Carolina, and David Zierden, the State Climatologist of Florida. And finally, a key player in every project is the external evaluator, and we are so pleased to have Sharon Strover in that role. But we also see her as providing critical input on the research too. Sharon has expertise in rural community resiliency and has done groundbreaking work in the areas of broadband and disaster response. And now we will move on to a brief overview of the project. So let's review the research questions and design. We have 3 research questions, as you can see here. RQ1 covers existing policies, RQ2 key players, RQ3 targeting services. The project focuses on disaster preparedness response and recovery plans and continuity of operations plans and extracts key elements. We understand that library policies and actions don't exist in a vacuum. Rather, libraries are part of a larger ecosystem in which they influence and are informed by other parts of the ecosystem, whether that's a library system or government. Our theoretical premise and ethical orientation in this project is that because librarians and community leaders are also survivors of the disaster, they must work together to envision how to build back better. We do this by capturing information from librarians, building relationships with librarians and multidisciplinary partners, improving plans, skill building through module development and workshops, and through the development of a workbook for continuous learning and modification of plans. While we are gathering data to build knowledge, we're also building capacity through tailored policy revision, workshops, and creating a workbook for use by public librarians. In year 3, we completed the baseline survey of library directors and piloted the EOC County Directors Survey. We began interview and focus group activities and have begun data analysis activities and workshops with library stakeholders. For the library director survey, we collected 50 survey responses from library directors representing 30 counties, 12 of which are rural. We also collected 13 disaster plans from 10 county libraries, 3 of which are rural. We analyzed the plans and developed a checklist of disaster plan elements feasible for a disaster plan framework. We're improving the checklist through focus group sessions at targeted professional conferences and workshops. We created and piloted the EOC survey and met with representatives from the State Division of Emergency Management. The survey will be sent to Florida EOC county directors and capture key elements of their work with libraries and library directors. We will culminate the research in model plans and processes for how to develop and update effective disaster plans and work with community stakeholders. This interactive workbook will be available online. Last fall, we also had to contend with Hurricane Ian, which brought catastrophic flooding not only where it came into Southwest Florida, but also within areas of Central and Northeast Florida. Through our regional networks, we learned about how neighboring county libraries accommodated an influx of people that were evacuating from the storm's path. We've begun our work on the role of libraries in adjacent counties that serve evacuating citizens. A social media analysis of X, or now Twitter, Twitter, but now X, and Facebook posts has already been completed. And we found interesting patterns in the types and frequency of the posts before, during, and after the storms. Interviews are planned with targeted library directors and staff, and movement mapping research is also underway. So what was done in year 3? We had 4 major activities: continuing our analysis with the library director survey and plan submissions, preparing the EOC director survey, GIS training preparation, and project dissemination. For the library director survey, we analyzed the submitted disaster plans and created a disaster plan checklist using the plan analysis, FEMA guidelines, and library disaster guides. We developed focus group and interview questions and conducted interviews with library directors. For the EOC director survey, we shared our survey with the advisory board and made the requested modifications. And we also developed materials for the governor's hurricane conference. Next, we collaborated with the FSU GIS librarian for pilot training adjustments. And finally, we've shared project details presenting at the Florida Library Directors Meeting, through a juried paper and presentation at iConference Virtual 2023, sharing our conclusions from the Library Directors Survey. And through a workshop at the Florida Governor's Hurricane Conference for County EOC personnel, and through a workshop at the Southwest Florida Library Network with library directors. And also, as we mentioned previously, we added the amendment on adjacent libraries, where we conducted that data analysis on social media and articles related to Hurricane Ian, and are working through a document analysis on county emergency management plans and continuity of operation plans, and also conducted interviews with library directors and staff. So we wanted to give you a snapshot of what we shared at iConference. Within the library director survey, our first research question aimed to understand the elements of disaster preparation, response, and recovery that our libraries were already using. Previous researchers suggested the need for libraries to develop mitigation measures, disaster plans, and training staff for emergencies. Our results suggest that less than half of the library systems engaged in mitigation measures, which means that they're not assessing vulnerabilities, and this lack could lead to increased damage during disasters. Our participants fared better on disaster plans, but at least 40% still lack formal disaster plans or plans written to accommodate their needs, which could leave them struggling to respond to disasters within their communities. Though Florida library leaders were talking about disasters with their staff, there's still a gap in training staff for emergencies, which could leave some staff uninformed about staff-related duties. Our library leaders, similar to previous researchers' findings, lacked a voice in local emergency management planning sessions, which could mean a more inefficient community response during disasters, with duplication of efforts and delayed response times. Libraries need to incorporate mitigation measures and staff training within formal disaster plans, preferably in collaboration with emergency management, for a more cohesive disaster response that will benefit the community. Libraries should create and maintain their own disaster and continuity of operations plans, updating them regularly. Disaster plans should address building infrastructure by assessing building construction and window replacement needs, as well as updating HVAC units for climate control needs of collection, equipment, and improved air circulation to prevent pandemic-related pathogens. They should address technology infrastructure, including Wi-Fi and bandwidth needs suitable for the community's population. And they should look at their community's needs, assessing the community's likely needs during disasters and ways staff and library resources can meet those needs, along with clearly delineated staff roles and responsibilities with a plan of action. Our second question centered on the issues public library leaders in Florida face when planning for and responding to natural disasters. Previous researchers pointed to a lack of consistent library involvement in local disaster planning elements, and our findings concur. Throughout Florida, library leaders reported a range of barriers, from a lack of resources to train staff and unclear county expectations. Barriers were often reported to be material too, with library leaders pointing to the need to protect vulnerable buildings and use generators as two examples of needs that would benefit from additional funding. Certainly, increased funding can address many issues and improve public libraries' roles in their communities. However, funding does not put librarians at the table in local planning efforts. And that partnership is critical for establishing holistic, integrated local disaster responses. Without aligning efforts, public librarians will remain undertrained, undersupported, and underutilized. So, how can we make libraries and communities more resilient to disasters? We need to fill in those missing gaps that leave libraries in reactionary roles, unprepared for disasters. Following and maintaining a well-implemented disaster plan would address these gaps and better prepare Florida libraries to deal with disasters. Library leaders are not often formally trained in disaster management, which could mean disaster management protocol is misunderstood. LIS educators should develop curricula that include emergency and natural disaster planning for librarians, particularly public librarians, and even implement emergency management certification focused on libraries, encompassing not only facilities and collections, but also delineating continuity of operations and providing community aid in the aftermath of disasters. Current library leaders should collaborate with their local government's emergency management team and county commission, perhaps calling on their emergency management expertise to assist in mitigation strategies and disaster preparation for both the library system and the general public, and would help foster a closer relationship between the two entities. Libraries would benefit from building relationships and working with the local government officials throughout the year, rather than waiting for a disaster that could leave library staff unsure of their role and struggling to assist their communities. Joint workshops on disaster preparation to the public would start building that relationship and start the conversation on county disaster plans and the library's role within it, emphasizing how library staff and resources serve their communities through their own training as information specialists with skills to maximize information access, retrieval, and dissemination to communities. So now we will share all the exciting activities that we're planning for year 4. In year 4, we will launch the EOC survey, currently being just actually finished piloted by our graduate students. We will analyze the survey responses and any submitted county disaster plans. We will continue our work with library directors and staff, conducting focus groups that will allow us to go deeper into the elements of disaster plans, then transcribe and analyze the focus group data. We will also create and modify a disaster plan model and workbook that could be used by Florida public libraries in creating their own disaster plan. Additionally, we'll conduct the GIS training with public librarians so librarians learn the basics of QGIS, including installation of software, locating and manipulating files, and creating site-specific maps. Finally, we'll work on the Adjacent Libraries Amendment by conducting interviews with library leaders from the state of Florida, library consortia representatives, and citizens. We will analyze movement data of those citizens before, during, and after Hurricane Ian, and we'll transcribe and analyze all interviews. We will ramp up iSmart dissemination efforts as well. So in addition to our planned print journal publications, you may see us this year at COSLA, IAEM, the State Public Library Directors Meeting, iConference 2024, FLA 2024, Plan Mini Conference, or other related conferences and workshops. We hope that you've enjoyed this brief update. Again, we would like to convey how grateful we are to you for being willing to be part of this important work. Please look for periodic emails from us and do not hesitate to get in touch if we can help you in any way. As always, feel free to contact us using the emails provided should you have any questions. Thanks, everyone.